What's good? My name is Daryl Omar. I am a best-selling romance author with 25 books across Amazon, Wattpad. I'm on Wattpad these days just to make the books free and available for people who might be on a budget, low income. I know what it's like to be homeless and in poverty. And I want to talk about modern dating, I guess. There's a lot of different topics I could have discussed. But modern dating just seems to be like a huge thing that people are talking about because people, I guess they don't want to be the end of their bloodline, I guess you would say. They want their bloodline to go on and be fruitful and all this other type of shit. That's very hard to do if you are not a healed person. I just saw something, and I only saw it because I thought it was directed at me. If I knew it wasn't directed at me, I probably would not have, because it seems so far off from who I am now as a person. Not who I was like in my 20s or some shit like that, but who I am now that I got God in my life. Now that I'm trying to get into heaven rather than being on the highway to hell. I used to be riding on the bus to hell, and I was friends with the conductor of the bus. So I've been there, I've done that. I know what it is. I get y'all. But I saw this dude very mad and very bitter about like relationships, his love life, how he's in his 40s, late 40s, no kids. He has a home, he has 2 degrees. And it's like, it's the same stuff that a lot of women say. And I think the difference between me and a lot of people is that I find a lot of these things to be human issues. I don't just generalize it down to skin color. I think it's very human. Crime, I think it's very human. Ambivalence, I think it's very human to be magnanimous and egalitarian and charitable. People are people. Some people are total assholes. Some people are completely unlikable in every way, shape, or form. You want nothing to do with them. You don't want to be around them. You don't want to look at them. You don't want to make eye contact. Some people, you hope that they notice you. You hope they say something to you. You hope that you have an interaction, see them at the party, see them at the family reunion. I got cousins that live in other states who I love to death. I pray that they show up to the weddings, to the family reunions, to things of that nature. And there's family members that live probably 5-10 minutes away we don't even know that we live 5 to 10 minutes away from each other because we don't really fuck with each other like that. But with that, those are all different types of relationships, right? Even the people that you don't like, you have a relationship with. Even the people that you like a lot, you have a relationship with, even if it's non-sexual, non-romantic. And when people talk about relationships, I don't think they're really bearing in mind you have a relationship with literally everything around you. I have a relationship with my desk. I have a relationship with my laptop. I probably have a closer relationship with my laptop than I do most people, to be completely honest with you. Given how much of my work is derived on the laptop. Still, I have a family. Still, I have a kid. Still, I have a woman who loves me, and I love her very dearly. And I notice many men, many women look at my relationship, and they're very confused. And it's none of their goddamn business, first and foremost. Or they're very angry and very upset, And I think it's because a lot of them don't have anybody. And they felt like if they had focused on all these superficial, material, meaningless things to impress people, that they would find a romantic partner. The issue with that mindset is that when everything that you offer to people is an externality, you can make them laugh, you can give them money or something like that, you can buy them gifts. Like there's 5 different love languages. Some of these love languages are externalities. For instance, I'm an acts of service love language. Quality and time and bonding, though, is an internal thing that you have to do together. Positive affirmations is an internal thing that you have to do together. You know, it's like giving gifts is an externality, though. You know, doing things for people, buying things for people, these are externalities that can be replaced by other people. Quality time with you is a very intimate thing that they can only do with you uniquely. Positive affirmations and communication is something that really only comes from that person. You know, and very often it can be a negative affirmation. It could be destructive language. It can be deconstructive criticism rather than constructive criticism or feedback or guidance or advice. And if you don't have any mindfulness for how you treat people and how you come across to people, the self-awareness of how you come across is the key determinant factor that I see in single people that makes it very difficult for them to ever find a relationship, is that they have a very acute sense of how they see themselves. And when how you view yourself is in direct confrontation with how other people see you, you can't exist in the same world as that person. Either you're going to have to admit that you have character flaws and you have issues and you have problems and you have things you need to work on. You need to be very honest about that, very open about that. And some people will give you that. They are very open about their issues. They are very honest about their trauma. They are very forthright with every fucked up thing that has ever happened to them. But they are also not actively healing out of these modalities. They're not healing out of these states. A state and a modality is temporary. You know, the mode that you're in, the state that you're in, the state being physical, the mode on this way, I'm saying more in an existential, psychological type of way, how you feel, but not just how you feel. Generally, when you wake up in the morning, is there a right side or wrong side of the bed? Because that's bullshit. It's just you. Some people have learned how to manage life in a way that they're living in heaven just by being themselves. Some people are living in hell on earth because they are who they were the entire time through, and they have not changed, they have not improved, they have not grown. So when you're 20 in a relationship and you're being confronted with issues and problems and things that you need to change and you need to work on, and you break up, did you break up and did you work on all these things that made this relationship not work out? Or are you like many of the people that I know in my life, that they had a bad relationship at 15, they had a bad relationship at 17 years old, and they have learned nothing. They've never tried again. They've never done anything again. They have avoided it like the plague, because I think what we have to understand is, like, when we're dealing with other people, we're not dealing with extensions of ourselves. We're dealing with extensions of God. We're either dealing with people who are vibrating with God's energy, or we're dealing with people who are vibrating with the energy of Satan. Some people, again, are ambivalent. Some people are neutral. Some people don't have any energy. They don't have any awareness. They don't even really have any trauma, to be completely honest. Some people don't have any trauma. Some people are fine. So if you're the type of person who has normalized trauma, people having trauma, people having conflict, people having confrontation, and that's normal to you, you're a fucked up individual. You need therapy. You need to get help. That's why you can't find a partner. Because when they want to have a conversation, you want to win a conversation. You want to have a debate. You want to have the first word, the middle word, and the last word. You don't know how to work with people. So how are you going to be in a relationship with people if you can't manage relationship with inanimate objects in your life? You can't treat the inanimate objects in your life with respect and decency. how are you going to treat the animate objects with respect and decency? I'm saying that philosophically on purpose because it's more than just issues that you need to internalize. You've gone through trauma, you've had a rough childhood, people have scorned you and hurt you, and that's a fair reality that hurt. You know, that pain happened. It may not have been physical. The psychological pain, the existential pain in many ways is far worse than any physical pain that you will go through, because the psychological and existential pain and trauma, that is the shit that sticks with you for life. The things people said to you, the things you find out people said about you, the things people did to you, not showing up for you, neglecting your feelings or emotions, putting other people above you, that is a very painful thing to go through. But when you rationalize where you are in this person's hierarchy of life, and that to you this person might have been very important, but to them, you were just another person. You're just any other person, and they might have cordiality with you, they might have colloquialisms with you, but other than that, they don't know you. They don't have relationship with you. You have a clear perception of who you think you are, but you live with that perception every single day. You have that perception in mind of who you are and what you represent and what you believe in and what you stand for and what you love and what brings you joy. You, hopefully, because some people don't. Some people don't. Some people genuinely, honestly don't. So hopefully you do. And you have that with you 24/7. The people that engage with you on a daily basis still don't know you, though. Unless you're living in congruence, you're living in alignment, you're living in attunement with all those things, they don't know that you represent and stand for. They may not even know your political beliefs, let alone your beliefs about the human condition of all things. You know, these aren't conversations that people are having every day. Like, hey, Bob, how have you been thinking about the human condition and how humans treat one another lately? You know, maybe you are having those conversations with Bob, but me and Robert haven't been talking about that. Me and Robert might talk about politics. Me and Robert might talk about food. We might talk about the weather. We might talk about each other. We might talk about ideas. But when it comes down to, like, we have these private personal relationships with people, yes. And they're romantic, they're intimate, they're familial, or they're friend. You have philo love, you have storge love, you have eros love, you have pragma love. You have a lot of different versions of love and relationships that we have with people on a daily basis. What is your relationship to the human condition? That is why you can't have a relationship intimately and romantically with other people. That's why you might have a lot of people that know you, but you don't really have any close friends to really hang out with or go out with, because either there's a blockage in which people have a very clear understanding of who you are, and you may not have a clear understanding of yourself, you know, or vice versa. You might have a very clear understanding of who you think you are, and people may not know you for shit. You know, and I know I face that personally. Is like, I don't really like to socialize. I like to be alone. I like to be to myself. I don't like to really be around people too much. I don't really like to socialize all that often. I can be kind. I can be nice to people, but I kind of just like to be in my own space to myself, you know? That doesn't really give me a chance for other people to get to know me. When I was younger, I talked to this guy. I used to do security and I worked at the bar. I was talking to my buddy earlier about when I used to do security, and now I'm thinking about it. But there's this guy, Doug, who always sat by the bar, hopefully he's alive. If he is, God bless you, and I pray you have good health. If you passed on, buddy, then I'll see you one day after. But he was an amazing older guy, and he worked in the military. He like fired mortars and shit like that. Cool old dude. Came to the bar every day. Would go on his routes around. Whatever the hell he was dealing with it with the bottle. Good conversation though. And he told me it's better to be seen than viewed. It is better to be seen than to be viewed. What does that mean? I asked. It sound like the exact same words and you're just trying to sound clever. No, it makes sense. It's better for people to physically be able to see you so there is no disparity, there is no question, there is pure clarity in what's good, what's up, what's going on with you. They don't have to speculate, they don't have to guess, they don't have to assume. You don't put yourself into a position in which who you are as a person is wrapped up in someone's fucking imagination. You know? You don't know this person, they don't know you, and they have all these fucking thoughts and ideas that you've never even had a real mutual conversation. You've never hung out before. You never drank. You've never done anything of any form of bonding that would constitute a real, genuine friendship. See, I'm moving from the term relationship now to friendship, because you have a relationship with you have a relationship with the ground. You have a relationship with the grass. If you have the same fly buzzing around your house, you have a relationship with the fly. A friendship, a bond, that's a whole different thing. Some people move from a position as if everyone is their best friend, and they might genuinely feel that way because a lot of people are. But when you don't really know this person and you want to get to know them, and you don't just want to get to know them on the basis of, this is like the real reason why people struggle with relationships. I know this is going on, but we'll go for about maybe 20 and then I'll publish this and delete it off my phone. But this is like the real reason why people struggle with intimate relationships is I remember distinct groups of friends. I remember friends like Max, friends like Abel, and other people whose names I can't remember because I didn't want them around me. You know, you have some people that they're cool at the party. They're cool when you meet up at the club. They're cool when you meet up at the bar. They're cool in class. You know, it's like the relationship is the relationship where you guys are mutually comrades. You know, another buddy taught me this shit back in the day. The difference between comrades, constituents, and colleagues, or compatriots or some shit like that, are the four. Compatriots, comrades, and constituents. The people who follow you because they believe in you, the people who follow you because they believe in your cause, and the people that you have a genuine relationship with. Those are completely different. So if you switch your beliefs, you switch up in your political stance, you switch up in your viewpoint on abortion or some shit like that, you might lose that relationship forever because you weren't really there for one another. You were there on the basis of the principles of you both thought that you shared. You both thought you were trans. One person, I won't say necessarily grew out of it, but they got older, they met more people, they had more lived experiences, and they said, you know what? Everyone literally expresses themselves completely different without giving it a title. I'm just going to be who I am without giving it a title. I'll put it like that. And even though they start wearing dresses more or whatever, they're still who they are in nature. They still like throwing axes. They still like wood cutting. They still like iron working and metallurgy. You know, they just go by Catherine, like what's on their birth certificate. So Catherine has been Catherine her entire life. But when Catherine was a teenager, she wore pants and cut her hair short. Now that Catherine is 35, she just does whatever the fuck she wants. You know, I'll put it like that. That works by yourself. That works in a group of people. But there's a lot of trans people who are going to have, I know for a fact, even though I tiptoed through that, they're still going to have a huge issue with that because you have people well into their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s who are transgender. It's not a phase. It's not some shit you just go through and it just disappears. I'm just saying for Catherine, that was Catherine's experience, but a lot of people would not like that. When you're talking about intimate, romantic, day-to-day, daily relationships with people, inside the same home, sharing space with one another. And that is the key thing there. Sharing space. That is not easy. It's easy to temporarily share space with one another. People fake it all the time, and I think that's what gives people a false perception of their relationship skills, is they're not aware to the level of which people are faking their relationship with them. Maybe they're not honest about how much they're faking their own like genuine earnest towards other people, whatever. I'm very open with how I feel about people. If I like you, I like you. If you're going to know I don't like you. If I like you, you're going to know I like you. You know, there's not going to be any real, if I'm ambivalent to you and I don't really care one way or another, you're going to feel like I just probably should just leave him alone. It's probably for the best we just don't interact with one another. You know, I have no issue with that. People aren't going to like you. And I think that is what makes you able to have a real relationship with people. If you can't accept the idea that some people don't like you, having a relationship with them is going to be hard, because then when they present something to you that they don't like about you, you won't have the ability to grow as a person, to change, to work on it, to be conscious, or you're going to defend it. You're going to defend your bad habits. You're going to defend your cruelty. You're going to defend your control. You're going to defend everything that people don't like about you, because you have this idea of self. You have this perception of who you are. You have these ideas in your head of how your life is going to go, and the other person does not feel the same way at all. There's no mutual understanding that is going to happen. You're just crazy. You're just, your perception of self is a hyperinflated ego that does not exist outside of your ego. It doesn't exist outside of your head. People struggle with that. You can't have relationships with other people like that. You know, other people might be able to help you build up your self-esteem. You know, they might be able to show you the things that you don't like about yourself and how you can work. You know, you can do that. But the person who needs to check their ego, the person who needs to check their control issues, like the tyrant, you know, the control freak, these people are going to die alone, because they don't even like it. A lot of people are like that because they don't like being controlled themselves. You know, that's how they get to that way. They don't like anyone telling them what to do. They don't like anyone controlling their space. They don't like anyone trampling on their beliefs and convictions. And then they can't have relationships with people at a genuine, intimate level, because no one trusts you with their emotions. People don't trust you with their life issues. Because you don't have empathy. You just have defensiveness. You have a hyperinflated view of self. You have a hyperinflated sense of your accomplishments and what you've done in the world. And this is coming from a 7 times bestseller with 25 books, people. I've done a lot in my life that I could brag about, have my head up my ass about. I still remain humble. People that have a hyperinflated sense of what they bring to the table and the value that they have in people's life lack self-awareness. Because you should know very clearly what you provide to people, who you are, and you should have that level of self-awareness. But when you think that you're so great and you're so amazing, you're so wonderful, you get to violate other people's rights, you get to violate other people's perceptions of who they are, you get to violate it. It's like when you feel you're so big into yourself that you don't have to listen to anybody, it's just going to be your way or the highway. You're the one who's going to end up on the highway. You might have a lot of fake relationships with people who don't give a shit about you. They're forced to engage with you. You share space together. You're forced to physically share space together. Someone who does not have to share, this is the romantic part. A romantic partner does not have to share space with you. They choose to. They don't have to really like you. They choose to be around. This person chooses you. And they desire You can't have a true friendship off of need. That's codependence. If people need you, you can't have a relationship because the relationship is dependence, you know? When people don't need you, you can have a relationship because it is a choice. A lot of you want people to have no other choice than to be with you. You want them to not have, you can't exist in a world where this person has other options. Because you're not going to remain competitive sexually. You're not going to keep trying to make this person keep falling in love with you. You're not going to keep trying to keep falling in love. You have to keep falling in love with this person every single day. Every day you have to wake up willing to fall back in love with this person. Every day. Not, oh, it's been a good week. It's been a good week because every single day she has done something or I have thought of something that makes me remember why I love you. That you say something here, you remind me of why I love you, like vice versa, or why you love me, vice versa. You know, if other people's emotions are too much work for you, if other people's opinions and perspectives are too hard for you to deal with, if having a conversation where you are not the center of interest is difficult for you, you're not going to have strong relationships with other people, let alone genuine friendships with anybody, because you only really care about yourself. You're not concerned with how you come across to other people. You're only really concerned with your perverted perspective of who they are as people. But are you allowing room for their self-awareness and who they think they are as a person? When those two egos can clash, I learned something last night that really puts it for me really well. It was about Five Nights at Freddy's, the new game that came out, the freaking Secret of the Mimic game. And there's a thing about like the Brahms lullaby that it was supposed to be sung as a counter melody with some German folk song, you know? So while the mother is singing the Brahms lullaby, the father is supposed to be singing the German lullaby, or they can switch roles and the person, whoever speaks German, can do the German lullaby, I guess. And that's how Brahms came up with the Brahms lullaby, because it was something that his mother and his grandmother sang to him when he was a baby. He became a world famous musician, and he brought his culture to the forefront. But your relationship is a counter melody. It's not a harmony. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong in their love life, in their relationships, when dealing with people, is other people are a reflection of you. But if you remember, a reflection is backwards. A reflection is not exactly everything in the room. Like right now where I'm at, everything is like kind of reverse. You know, for me, this is, well, for you, it's there, but like here, where I'm pointing right now looks like over here to me, and that bag is like over here for me. You know, like if I turn around, you know, and you look at, like, you see what I'm saying? It gets there, yes, because you're seeing me from this perspective and this angle. But the way that the image is reflected back to me within the camera, that's not what I'm looking at first and foremost, you know? And that's not my perception of how these things are behind me. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. It makes sense to me, but it's like your left, my right, your right, that type of shit. Your relationship, your most intimate relationships with your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. You see how I went there first before I went to your son, your daughter, your spouse. These are counter melodies. These people are nothing like you. And if they have to be exactly like you and do everything you say, they're not going to exist in your universe. That's why kids end up going no contact. They have kids, but their kids don't talk to them, don't want to see them, haven't seen them in years. You had a romantic partner, the relationship didn't work out. The person's alive, they didn't die, but they told you the truth about yourself. You didn't like the truth about yourself. You like your ego. You like the lies that you tell yourself. You like the externalities that you do to prove that you're someone that you're not. But who you are as an actual person, that's who your children have to deal with. Who you are in real life, not how you see yourself, but the reality of who you are, self-awareness, not ego. Ego is the image that we create. The alter ego, if you got to put it that way then. Self-awareness is who you actually are as a person. And the balance of self-awareness and empathy, those are the only ways to have a relationship with people. You may not communicate. You might just have body. I know some people that don't talk. So it's not necessarily communication. You got body language too. You got other ways of like getting the message across to people. Sometimes it's leaving people the fuck alone that gives you a great relationship with people. But when you're talking on a day-to-day intimate relationship with a human being, it isn't about anything that person does. It's about how you deal with people. This person is going to piss you off. This person is going to disappoint you. This person is going to make you really fucking angry to the point that you might go to jail, they might go to jail. You might say some shit to each other that you can never take back. If you have the type of mentality that can apologize, that can recognize when you've done wrong, you can recognize when you've gone too far, you can resolve conflict, you can manage conflict. Those are the only people that I see in healthy relationships. Everyone else, they're cheating on each other. They are workaholics. But it's like there's a lot of people that are in relationships, they're in friendships, but they can't spend every day together because they don't know how to give one another space. They don't know how to deal with conflict. And then they end up getting divorced because they don't work through their issues. Because the person with the hyperinflated ego is never going to work on themselves. They're never going to have healthy relationships because they're never going to be the problem to themselves. Everyone else is going to see them as the problem. Everyone else is going to very clearly see that they are the issue. And that person's not going to be able to see people walking on eggshells around them. They're not going to be able to see people avoiding them because that isn't going to be the outward expression of what people give them because they're probably still dependent. And again, they're dependent upon the narcissist. They're dependent upon the egomaniac 9 times out of 10, or the egomaniac is dependent upon them. And the egomaniac refuses to admit it. If your ego is more important than your relationships with people, you're never going to get married. You're never going to have a good long-term relationship with anybody. You're going to have a bunch of fake relationships in which you have to spend a shit ton of money going somewhere to keep you all distracted so you don't have to realize how fake the relationship is. You got to go to the play. You got to go to the movies. You got to go to the theme park. You got to go watch somebody else be interesting because none of you really like it. You can't just share space with each other. That was something very unique that my partner said to me yesterday, 2 days in a row, actually. It was very interesting. Sometimes she can't stand my house. But, you know, like I usually work in that old place I worked in the garage. I work in the garage here too now. This is my office dojo. I got my workout equipment, my business equipment, my desk here. This is my base of operations in the garage, you know. And she'll just find her way out here sometimes. My son last night, he came out, it's like 11 o'clock at night. He pops out here like 2-3 times in a row. And it's like, they want to be around me. They don't need to. I'm not doing shit like that, you know, but they want to be around me. They want to share space with me. They find reasons to share space with me. And that's something to me that really warms my old crackety old heart. And I'll come inside for a bit. Sometimes I don't, if you don't communicate that to me, I don't understand that. So once my son explained it to me and he said it, she just said, I'm not out here for any reason. I just wanted to be around you. I just wanted to see you. I'm like, that is the sweetest fucking thing ever. That I'll come inside for a bit or whatever. Because I get lost out here. If I start working, man, I get lost in my work. I get lost in what I'm doing. But people question it. It's like, why you, not me? And it's like, well, I don't have an ego. My ego died a long time ago. That's first and foremost. I have an endless amount of empathy for people. I avoid drama. I don't like conflict. I resolve my issues. I know how to apologize very quickly if I'm wrong. If I'm not wrong, I know how to forgive you without getting an apology. I can forgive you, and I will never speak to you again a day because you can't apologize. Because you don't have the ability to recognize when you're wrong, you'll never have relationships with other people that are meaningful or manifold. You won't. Because you're the problem. And your inability to accept that you're the problem is what makes you the problem. That by itself is the only reason why most of you are single to this day and will never ever, you will die alone, is because you can't accept that you're the problem. It's your life. It's just you. You can complain about the stimuli, but you are ultimately reacting to the stimuli or responding to the stimuli. If you're a reactive person who doesn't respond, you're probably going to chase people away from you. You're probably going to put yourself in a situation where people are just going to avoid you. Unfortunately. Or vice versa. If you're a responsive person, people will come to you with their issues. People will come to you for advice because they recognize that you're a person who genuinely listens to them. You process what's going on and you respond to the situation. You don't react, you respond. You can't have a relationship built off reactivity. You're going to hurt your partner and your partner is going to hurt you. That is what causes arguments, is reactivity. You have stressful conversations. You have critical conversations. As I have to put it to my partner, it's like, this is hard for me to discuss too. It's not just hard for you to talk about. It's not just difficult for you to deal with this. Let's look at it from both of our perspectives. This is hard, so let's work together to solve the problem. Working together is not just you getting your way, unfortunately. Working together isn't you ignoring how you come across to other people to just keep being cantankerous and obnoxious and hard to deal with. But also eventually, working together isn't just shutting down and isolating yourself when there's difficulty. It isn't pretending like the other person doesn't exist. You need to resolve your conflict. I feel like you can deal with almost anything besides adultery with conflict resolution. Once you get to the point of adultery, y'all either got to have a threesome with the person and y'all got to bring the person into the late. Y'all got to work that shit out as a triple, quadruple, whatever the fuck y'all doing at that point in time. Y'all got to bless it at that point or some shit like that. Otherwise, y'all got to let each other go because obviously the first person wasn't making you happy for you need to get to the second person to begin with, A lot of you might have too many options that you found the one person who loves you to death would smell your dirty drawers and do your laundry still. And you took advantage of that. You didn't appreciate that because that type of person isn't going to have sex with you every single day. That type of person isn't going to fill your ego every single day. The people who really genuinely love you and care about you are going to tell you the truth about yourself. And the truth hurts. The truth is very difficult to deal with. And you can't have a relationship with someone if you're not willing to hear the truth. A lot of you are single because you live in a delusion of who you are as a person. And when people tell you about yourself, it will break you because you're not as good as you think you are. Some of you are pieces of shit as people. Some of you are total fucking assholes. And that is why you're single. God bless you. Be well.